I really am excited to have Google represented at this event. I've used Google Hangouts before. This event is being streamed using Google Hangouts. As you look under the hood and get deeper into it, there's no question in my mind that a tool like that would be an awesome engagement maker for broadcasters, for talent, for sports, for talk. I mean, the ability to interact and engage directly with people on this new integrated way is really pretty awesome. So, Gabby Daddario and Maggie Ferrante, please welcome them.
Thanks so much for being here today. Mark, thanks for having us. We're excited to be here. As Mark said, my name is Gabby Daddario, and this is
Maggie Ferrante.
And we both work on the News and Media Partnerships team for Google+. So that's a small team actually within a larger group called the Google+ Community Partnerships team. And our jobs simply are to work with brands and organizations and publishers and broadcasters like yourselves to help them use Google+, help them come up with innovative, interesting, cool ideas for things they can do on our platform that maybe you can't do on other platforms. So we focus specifically on the news and media kind of industry. I work mostly with local publishers, and Maggie, as Mark mentioned, works with broadcast. But we've actually started to work a lot with radio recently. That's become a priority for us these days. So hopefully we can have some good information for you guys, some relevant, exciting stuff for the work that you do.
Also, please know we're going to give you a general tutorial on Google Plus as a platform. So feel free to interrupt us as we're going through the slides. We understand that there might be some nuances that are better explained while we're on that slide. So feel free to interrupt us.
So can I get a quick show of hands of how many people in this room have used Google Plus ever? Oh, look at all that. That is great. I was kind of expecting to be fewer. That's wonderful. So have you guys ever used a Hangout on Air? Fewer? Okay, cool. I was kind of expecting like there to be more popularity with Uber than with Google Plus in this group, but I'm so glad that that's not true. Cool. Okay. So just to give you a little background on the platform here, as most of you probably know, Google Plus is about 2 years old, still relatively in its infancy, or I guess maybe now we're in our terrible twos, you could say. That's not that much time in the grand scheme of things. Twitter, just to give you some perspective, is 7 years old now, and I've actually been meaning to figure out what was happening on Twitter 2 years into its development. I don't know off the top of my head. But it's taken 7 years for it to really become, or maybe 6 or 5, but quite a while for it to become ingrained in our consciousness and kind of on TV and in broadcast the way it has. So I think that's an important thing to keep in mind. That being said, we, I think, are the fastest growing social network right now. There are 500 million people on Google+, which isn't nothing. As you can see, it's been increasing at a pretty rapid rate since we launched the platform. So of those 500 million, 190 million are 30-day active, so those are people that are like really using the platform consistently a lot. People spend on average 12 minutes a day in the stream, and that number actually is a bit higher at this point. And there are 2.5 million Google Plus pages that have been created. So that's just a little bit of background on the platform itself. Obviously, there are two ways of thinking about Google Plus. It's both a social network and kind of a discrete destination, but also impacts your web experience overall online. But these are just facts and figures about the platform specifically. So as I sort of mentioned a little bit, Google Plus is a network, but we also talk about it as a social layer that impacts all of the products in the Google product family. So there are pretty deep product integrations between Google Plus and all of these products and more that you see listed here, meaning basically that anything you do on your Google Plus page as a brand or your profile as an individual has the potential to be surfaced to all of the people that use all of the products in the Google family, which obviously is many more than the finite number contained on the platform. So just to give you an example, people generally spend about an hour a day using Google products, which is more than the 12 minutes that they spend in the stream on Google+. So this is really important. We'll talk a little more about this, but obviously, what we talk most about with our partners, the integrations we talk most about are the ones with search, YouTube, news. That's obviously crucial for news and media partners, and local is important also. So, This, again, is just a bit of an overview of what we're going to talk about today, but I think actually this is a really important slide. It's deceptively simple, but important. So as I said, there are two ways of thinking about Google+. It's both a network and a destination, plus.google.com, where you can go to look at pictures, see what your friends are up to, see what your favorite brands are saying at any given time. But it's also a place for you to engage with your audience, with your followers, with your fans, in a way that's really unique and compelling, I think. So, as Mark was saying earlier, there are two important things to keep in mind, right? Creating unique and compelling content, and then getting that content to a platform where it can be distributed to a lot of people so they can consume your content, and Google Plus kind of provides you with both of those things. So the last three bullet points here, communities, events, and Hangouts, are more on the engagement side. These are tools that can really help you engage with the people that want to hear what you have to say in a cool and exciting way. But the integrations with search and all of the other Google products are also a way for you to distribute that content very far and wide. So that's a really important thing to know about Google+.
So something that seems to be of the utmost interest of our partners is usually the effect of Google+ in search. And if you're signed into your Google+ account, you'll see now that when you're going to search things in Google Search, you're returning social results as well, which is completely new with the onset of Google+. So now when you're in Google Search, you'll actually see these two icons, the profile indicating a social search versus a global search, which will have influence from your Google+ account. So what this means is that if you're following certain brands that are important to you, when you're going into Google Search, you'll be able to see what they're promoting, and you'll see social annotations throughout the search returns, indicating that NBC News recommended a certain story, or if you're searching for a local radio station in San Diego, should you be on the platform, you're going to have a much stronger likelihood of returning in Google Search. And for the first time, this is now available. This is what it actually looks like in the platform. You'll see the little profile or the little head makes its way over into the returns in search. So you'll see that NBC New York shared a certain article. What's even cooler is that you're now seeing a social card generated once you're in Google Search and you are logged into your Google Plus profile. For NBC News, if you go to search their title in search, you'll find that the social card actually presents, and it's showing their most recent posts in Google+. It's also allowing them to dictate the profile image that surfaces for them. And once again, previous to Google+, this was not available to brands to have any sort of impact on how they're appearing in search. Also, if you were to click through to that link, you're going to go directly to their Google+ page, see the content that they're posting. Should they have posted more recently, you'd actually see the most recent 2 posts from that brand. And it would also appear in ads in Google Search. And we've noticed a 5 to 10% increase in those social annotations for the click-through rate.
So one more thing, actually, I don't know if you guys can see, but right under here, it says how many followers they have on Google+. They have 1 million or 1.6 million, which can be important, if you're deciding whether or not you want to click on that content. It kind of allows you as the user to, establish some validity about this content. NBC News, obviously, like everybody knows about, but if it were a smaller brand, that could be a really helpful piece of information.
We also offer a feature where we'll verify your page. So for NBC News, we'll verify that they are in fact NBC, and a little check mark will appear next to them, once again authorizing their content and their page.
So this is something that I get really excited about personally. I think this is one of the coolest things you can do, tying in Google Plus to search. So authorship in search is a function of search that basically allows you to publicly tie all of the content that you publish on the web to your Google Plus profile. So this is something we talk about mostly with journalists and reporters and individuals, but really applies to anybody who is putting any content on the internet. So essentially, all you need is a Google Plus profile. And you go through a simple 2-step process that we can explain more to you if you're interested. It's very easy to do. It all happens online to basically verify that you say who you are, that you are who you say you are, and that you're publishing to the domains that you say you're publishing to. And once you've done that, whenever one of your articles shows up in search, it will actually pull in your Google Plus profile. So people will be able to see your face, like good old Ezra Klein up here. as well as some social annotations, some more information from your Google Plus profile. So you can see, not unlike what we saw on the slide before, he has 1 million people that are following him on Google Plus. You can actually click back to his Google Plus profile from those links. And most importantly, where it says More by Ezra Klein, if you click on that, it'll take you to a whole new search engine results page with every article that has been indexed by Ezra Klein on the internet. So it's really good for you as an author, for your writers, for even the people that are working at your radio station, for example. It increases the discoverability of your content by a lot. It helps the users who are looking for your content find it. And as I was saying a little bit before, if you're somebody who's searching for this article, when you see a result here that has a picture and a little more information about the person who wrote it, you're probably more likely to click on it. You see his smiling face, he looks credible and like he knows what he's talking about. 1 million people on Google Plus have subscribed to his thoughts, so that gives you another helpful piece of information. And then, as I said, you can read everything else that he's ever written. One other thing that's really important about this is that using Google Analytics, you can actually track the number of impressions and clicks that your content receives once you've set up authorship. So this is something that we work on a lot, and basically, if you try to set this up and encounter any difficulties, email us and we can help you fix it. But it's in our best interest as well as in yours to make authorship something that happens for a lot of people. Okay, moving on to the platform.
So we're going to get into some of the features of the platform itself and describe ways that they might be relevant to you. The first, this is actually a new feature that we released at our developers conference about a month ago. Related hashtags. So you use hashtags across all social platforms. I mean, they're not unlike you use them on Twitter or Facebook or anywhere else. But what's cool about the way that they're being used in Google Plus right now is that if you don't incorporate a hashtag and you're posting about a certain news story, or for instance, this one's showing I/O and Google, the platform actually recognizes what it is that you're talking about and makes a recommendation about what hashtag is relevant to this content. And we'll go ahead and generate it here. So you'll see that in the top right corner. Now this still allows you to be fully in control of what hashtags you use on your posts. But what it enables is that you can click through to that hashtag and see all of the content that is being posted across the platform related to whatever the topic of interest is. So if I were to click through to IO13, I would see that there are all the posts, the videos, the pictures from the event, all in this one landing page that can actually be promoted. So what this might mean for a radio station is that you could promote a hashtag around a certain program or the station, and then have this landing page where all of that information is aggregated and becomes this destination where you can experience everything related to whatever the content may be.
Okay, so this is another really important feature of Google Plus that hopefully will be relevant for you guys. Has gained a lot of traction with the partners that we've worked with so far. Communities. So really, it's the newest feature, or second newest, I guess, after related hashtags. Communities is a pretty self-explanatory idea. You're basically creating a forum where your audience, your fans, your followers can get together and talk to one another around a shared interest. Google Plus is very much an interest-based platform. So whereas Facebook, is a place where you go to talk to and hear from people that you already know from many walks of life and your family members, and to see pictures of them. Twitter is kind of the news graph. We think of Google Plus as the interest graph, and communities are very much a place where that plays out. So as a brand page, or as a brand rather, there is a difference between setting up a Google Plus page and a community. A page is more a place for you to be pushing out your content in a one-way flow to the people that want to consume it. And a community is you creating a space for, as I said, your audience, your constituents, to talk to one another and to talk to you occasionally about the stuff that they care about. So it's very new. As I said, it's about 3 months old, and we still are kind of trying to figure out what the magic formula is for making a super successful community, especially within the media world, because as we all know, it's a unique and different industry. Sorry, I keep walking in front of that. So, but here are 3 examples of great communities that exist at the moment, and there are a lot already that exist, but these are good examples. The Next Web created a tech news community. Typically, we say that it's better to make a niche community rather than one that has a broad topic attached to it, but this one actually does really well. As you can see, there are 31,000 people in it. There's a really high quality of engagement. People are kind of constantly in there talking to one another, and the quality of the posts is pretty high too. Social journalism also is a really cool one. Experts, kind of getting together and talking to one another about how social media is affecting journalism today, which is a very interesting topic, I think. And this last example here actually is a community that's about 3 weeks old only, that we are working on with Project Syndicate. They're one of our partners. I don't know if you guys have heard of them, but they aggregate international opinion commentary on their website. It's a really interesting idea. And we basically came up with this idea with them to make an opinion community. It's the first of its kind on Google+. But this idea was born out of a trend that we've seen and that I'm sure you guys have all noticed also, which is that opinion commentary tends to generate a lot of reader comments online, especially. So, Nick Kristof will publish something in the New York Times and there will be 700 comments on it the next day. So obviously that's content that is often, kind of provocative, like it encourages a lot of conversation. That's the perfect kind of thing for a community. So we started this community with them, and the end goal, the idea is eventually to have it be a place where their contributors, Joseph Stiglitz, for example, can interact directly with their readers, which is really cool. Like to have the opportunity to, do a live chat, kind of like an Ask Me Anything in a community with your favorite opinion writer is really exciting. And you can also host hangouts from within communities. There's a whole host of things you can do, but this is a really exciting feature of Google+. Here are just some more examples, some more kind of value propositions for communities. Sensible Politics is another really good one that was started by the Sensible Politics org, but very, very high quality of posts there. One example we love to talk about also that Maggie actually worked on was not in the Hunger Games community, although that is a community full of like very rabid fans who are very excited about the Hunger Games. As you can imagine, 71,000 people. But Maggie worked on The Walking Dead, is that right?
Yeah, it was The Walking Dead and the Game of Thrones communities, which, like Catching Fire, I mean, it had a ton. It's probably around 37,000 participants in the community. And the way that we were able to innovate with the product was we brought in a media partner. So E! News was interested in doing some sort of feature with communities. And what it ended up looking like was this hour-long guest moderation. So they served as the moderator for an hour-long Q&A session. And we did it around the premiere and the season finale of both of these shows and allowed for these incredibly enthusiastic community members to come in and ask questions of a reliable source who could give them some inside information about what's going to happen next season, or some of the things that they were able to gather from the press junket that just happened. So we saw a lot of activity in the space, and this is a really low time commitment. I mean, you're not necessarily running this community on your own. Rather, you're tapping into a really engaged group that already exists and being able to gain a lot of traction out of it.
So like for a radio station, for example, you could create a community for the radio station once you have set up a page. And that could honestly be just a place for your fans to talk to one another. Maybe you could have like your whatever famous personality who's hosting your show that's most popular could come on occasionally, like this model that we've kind of talked about, and sit there and respond to comments live. You could even engage them in a hangout with your listeners, which is super exciting, right? You're putting a face to a radio voice. People really like to see that. So there are a number of different ways you can engage. You can also, as Maggie said, go into other communities that already exist on the platform and have a radio host or a personality engage in that community. What was the example that you were talking about? Gay rights activism, right?
Yeah, if there was a personality on the show that's very outspoken about a certain cause, they could tap into the market that already exists. There are very passionate groups of people already on the platform, so they could come and do a Q&A or have some sort of thought session with the people in that community. So once again, a little lower of a commitment.
One other thing I just want to know quickly about this is that people tend to be quite a bit more engaged in communities than just with the brand page. So this is really like, I feel like I've said this a couple times, but communities are a place that it's a successful area of Google Plus for sure, and it's kind of like the manifestation of the whole point of the platform. So I would encourage you guys to think about this.
What's also maybe interesting for radio is allowing your viewers to talk to each other. So on other platforms, you're able to speak to your viewers just with like a one-way dialogue, but to be able to connect those two people together and create additional content in the space is invaluable, and that's not something that you're finding everywhere with social networks. So another feature that we wanted to discuss are events, and I know that we use an event to RSVP and kind of gather everyone for today's event. Oh, sure.
Back one slide with you.
Yeah.
In your community spot, and you talk about you're working with some radio stations. Are there any, I'll just use this as an example, sports radio stations that are using this platform as like, I guess, a newer version of a message board?
So I don't know actually of any radio stations that are using communities specifically, but there are radio stations that are using Hangouts, which we're going to talk about in a couple of slides. But ESPN Radio, for example, has been experimenting with Hangouts. NPR, some of the shows on NPR have been using them. And there's one PBS podcast, the Media Twits, the Media Shift podcast, has now moved entirely over to Hangouts.
Along those lines, though, there is an NFL fantasy community, so that opens up a similar message board, I think, that you're talking about. So there are things in that space. I can't attest to any truly radio stations doing it, but the concept and the idea is out there, and sports are one of the most popular topics on the platform because we do lean a little bit more male.
Are there any other questions at this point about anything we've talked about so far? Okay.
So back to events. I'm sure many of you saw it when Mark invited us all to the event today, but events actually allows for a number of different features to get included into this space on Google+, and it's available outside of the platform as well. So whether or not you had a Google+ page, he could still send you the event and you'd be able to see the content. What's even cooler is that you're actually able to make the event allow people to upload their own pictures or their own information to it. So for instance, the New Yorker for Election Day allowed their viewers or their users to come to their Google+ event and upload their pictures that they saw on Election Day. So as you can imagine, they're gathering people from across the country, showing what's happening in their neck of the woods, and then you have it all living in this space. In addition to that, you can also plug in the Hangout on air. So today, we actually have this being live streamed in the event, and the URL is available as soon as you create this event. So you're able to send this out days, weeks before you actually hold the event, drive people to that place, and then they're able to watch the live stream, they're able to watch the video, and it's recorded, so they're able to watch it for weeks, years to come.
And you don't need a Google Plus profile to be able to look at an event. So it basically creates a landing page or kind of a central hub for your event or your Hangout on air that doesn't even have to be contained within the platform.
Everybody thank Gabriela, Daddario, and Maggie Ferrante. Thank you guys. Thank you.